Tonight, the fall storm hitting from coast to coast as the Northwest recovers from that devastating bomb cyclone. The system dumping record-breaking snowfall on the Midwest. Some residents in Pennsylvania making their own snow tools, using crutches and even a plastic cup to clear their cars. The snow also hitting the Northwest. Emergency crews forced to clear this big rig from the side of a California highway. Other parts of the Golden State submerged by that atmospheric river. How could this impact your holiday travel plans? Also tonight, the bombshell decision in Trump's New York hush money case. The judge indefinitely postponing the president-elect's sentencing in the only one of his 4 criminal cases to go to trial. The legal victory comes as we're learning more about the path forward for Matt Gaetz, who stepped down as Trump's pick for Attorney General. And breaking tonight, our new reporting on Trump's next major cabinet pick. Plus, Florida's top health official calling for fluoride to be removed from the state's water. The move in lockstep with Trump's pick to lead the nation's health department, RFK Jr. We'll speak to the experts about the risks involved. Iceland volcano erupts. Stunning new images showing molten rock snaking across the land of fire and ice, cutting off roads and threatening homes. The eruption, now the 7th for that volcano this year. The iconic tourist attraction now forced to evacuate. Magical trip. 6 newly minted astronauts making history aboard Blue Origin's latest space flight. What they saw above our planet and the emotional moments when they returned back to Earth. And the daring rescue in California caught on camera. A man trapped on the side of a cliff in San Francisco. The moment a first responder dangling from a helicopter pulled him to safety. And a jury in Ireland finding Conor McGregor liable for sexual assault. How the UFC superstar is responding. Top Story starts right now. Good evening. I'm Ellison Barber in for Tom Llamas. We start tonight with the massive storm system stretching across the nation, delivering a punishing and historic barrage of snow and rain. The amount of snowfall from the East Coast to the Midwest catching some residents by surprise. Parts of New Jersey seeing close to 2 feet of snow, and the city of Chicago getting the most snow for the month of November in 5 years. In Pennsylvania, drone footage showing several crashes, snarling traffic, leaving a snaking line of cars through the snow. The wintry mix not just staying in the east. In Northern California, snowfall causing slippery conditions on the roads, forcing this big rig off the side of a highway. But it is not all bad news on the snow front. Some people, or rather animals, have been enjoying it. The pandas at the National Zoo in D.C. relishing their first snowflakes today. And the otters at a zoo in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, well, they looked right at home. The snowfall capping off an intense week of severe weather brought about by that bomb cyclone we've been reporting on. Torrential rains from that atmospheric river leaving these vehicles in Santa Rosa, California, almost completely submerged, and drone video showing the floods closing down this highway in Northern California. The big question tonight, how will all of this affect the roughly 80 million Americans who are expected to take to the roads or the skies as the Thanksgiving holiday approaches? NBC's Sam Brock starts us off tonight from Scranton, Pennsylvania.
In parts of the storm-battered Northeast, where one person has already died in a car crash, the sheer volume of snow came as a bit of a shock.
I didn't think it was going to be like this serious.
Drivers clearing off cars with everything from coffee cups to hotel brooms.
Yeah, you don't see this in Arizona.
Nearly non-stop precipitation piled more than 6 inches of snow here in Scranton, Pennsylvania.
It don't take me long to do my driveway. Well, with snow like this, it does.
Regional high of 20 inches in High Point, New Jersey. Part of a system that notched Chicago's snowiest November day in 5 years and turned the Browns Steelers Thursday night football game into a snow globe. While the storm has dampened wide-ranging fire threats, dumping 7 inches on New York's Jennings Creek fire, it's also led to mass power outages, more than 125,000 in Pennsylvania alone.
I'm trying to at least shovel a little bit because I have my limitations.
Maria Rosado lives with several disabilities and saw her electricity cut out briefly today.
Does the idea of not having power in your situation?
It's scary. Absolutely, it's scary.
With efforts to clear roadblocks like these ongoing, the West Coast is still reeling from that atmospheric river.
Right now, still about 200,000 people without power between Washington state and Northern California, where the area is still getting hammered with rain. Some areas could see up to 17 inches before the end of the week. All of this elevating the risk of serious flooding.
At an outpatient clinic and hotel in Santa Rosa, California, around 150 people were stranded for hours. With the holidays approaching, nationwide weather disruptions have many anxious about what's next.
I'm hoping that my car can take me where I need to go and, just pick up a few items just in case.
And Sam Brock joins us now from a snowy Scranton, Pennsylvania. Sam, you mentioned those power outages. Where do things stand right now?
Sure, snowy, Ellison, and freezing. Temperatures right now in the mid to low 30s, so it's a pretty pressing question. We spoke with PPL, that's the main power company for this area. They said that in all likelihood, most customers will have their power restored by Saturday. We're talking about, again, 100,000 people. Sunday is the worst case scenario, 48 hours out. You look over my shoulder right now, you see a tree buckled in the middle of the street where it's not supposed to be. On the other side of it are power lines that are suspended over the street, also much lower, crushed under the weight of snow. That is what crews are up against right now. We're talking about 1,100 of them, Ellison, working 16-hour shifts to try to rectify the situation for the people who live here. Ellison?
Sam Brock, thank you. And weather always a concern when it comes to Thanksgiving travel. Nearly 80 million Americans are expected to take to the roads and the skies this holiday. A record 71 million people will travel by car, according to a AAA projection, with nearly 6 million set to fly domestically. For more on the forecast, NBC News meteorologist Bill Cairns joins us. Bill, what is left of the two big storms Sam mentioned there, and are they going to be a concern heading into this Thanksgiving travel week?
Ellison, the storm in the east is winding down. The cleanup is well underway. We're not going to see much additional snow. But in the west, this atmospheric river has intensified during the day today. And you can see all the bright oranges and yellows. And this is pointing right over the top of San Francisco Bay and Oakland. They've had picked up at least 2 to 3 inches in the last couple hours, and it's still pouring. We have a flash flood warning for Oakland here up to Richmond. And this has been observed by law enforcement. That's why the flash flood warning has been issued. So that's still going to be rough. In the east, the storm is winding down. Still just a little bit of snow left over, but it's going to be a raw beginning to the weekend. The storm will exit. It will get windy and colder for the east as we go throughout your weekend. So the big news as we head towards Thanksgiving, this is the outlook as we go from Thanksgiving Day right through Thanksgiving weekend. It's been a long time since we had a big cold shot across the country. The eastern two-thirds expect winter-like temperatures and above-average precipitation, especially in the mid-Atlantic up into the northeast. If the cold air and that precipitation meet at the same time, we may have to deal with some snow and icy problems, too. So Sunday's kind of the first getaway day. New storm comes into the west. Notice the eastern two-thirds of the country, quiet, no problem whatsoever. Let's fast forward to Wednesday. This is when our storm comes through the Rockies into the middle of the country, the beginning of the storm. It shouldn't be too difficult, but anyone traveling in and out of Denver especially will have some issues on Wednesday. Then by the time we get to Thanksgiving Day, this storm picks up some juice from the Gulf of Mexico. That means areas of heavy rain possible, maybe even some thunderstorms in the northern edge of this will be, snow mixed with maybe some ice, too, and that could be heading into New England during Thanksgiving Day. So we'll fine-tune that forecast for you next week, but something to watch for millions.
All right, Bill Cairns, we appreciate you. Thank you. Turning now to the Trump transition and breaking news just in. The president-elect tapping billionaire Scott Bessent for Treasury Secretary, bringing to close a power struggle that played out behind the scenes inside the Trump transition team. The hedge fund manager who worked closely with billionaire George Soros in the 90s has emerged as a key economic advisor to President Trump. That selection coming as Trump's new pick for Attorney General Pam Bondi, appearing to have an easier road to confirmation, while his original pick, former Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz, is speaking out. NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez has more.
Tonight, amid growing controversies over some of his cabinet picks, President-elect Trump's new choice for Attorney General, Pam Bondi, is facing a much easier path to be confirmed than her predecessor.
We've got to keep Florida red, especially for our great president.
A former prosecutor, Bondi was elected twice as Florida's attorney general, the first woman to hold that job, and was on Trump's defense team during his first impeachment trial.
Pam Bondi is here, a fantastic friend and woman.
She also helped amplify Trump's false claims about the 2020 election.
We have won Pennsylvania, and they're not going to take it away from us.
Trump posting Pam will refocus the DOJ to its intended purpose of fighting crime. Her rise coming after the abrupt withdrawal of the president-elect's initial pick, former Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz, who said today he won't go back to Congress.
I'm still going to be in the fight, but it's going to be from a new perch.
Gaetz again denying allegations he paid women for sex, including a 17-year-old, which the House Ethics Committee was investigating. The Justice Department also investigated the allegations and did not charge Gaetz.
If the things that the House Ethics report were true, I would be under indictment and probably in a prison cell. But of course, they're false.
Today, Trump's incoming deputy chief of staff knocked down speculation the FBI director job would go to former Michigan Congressman Mike Rogers.
Boy, does it need leadership, and it needs to clean out the rot that's happening in the senior levels of the FBI.
The rush is also on to staff lower-level positions. Already, transition officials are taking suggestions for potential hires from the extensive personnel database created by Project 2025. A person familiar with the situation tells NBC News. That's despite Trump repeatedly denouncing the conservative policy blueprint during the campaign.
I don't know what the hell it is. It's Project 25.
And Gabe Gutierrez joins us now from the White House. Gabe, let's start with the billionaire hedge fund manager President-elect Trump is tapping for Treasury Secretary. Who is Scott Bessent?
Yeah, hi there, Elson. And just within the past few moments, the president-elect officially announced that he had asked billionaire hedge fund manager Scott Bessent to serve as Treasury Secretary, saying that he will reinvigorate the private sector. Now, he's a Trump donor who has emerged as a key economic advisor to the president-elect. Obviously, it's a massive job, Ellison, but perhaps more so for this president, who has said he wants to impose tariffs on other countries. And Bessent will also be tasked with implementing any tax cuts passed by Congress. And also, Ellison, I should note some more breaking news. Just a few moments ago, the president-elect also announcing that he plans to nominate Russell Thurlow Vaught to the Office of Management and Budget. That's a role that he had during the first Trump administration. This administration and Trump team is now taking shape, Allison.
Gabe, I want to ask you a little more about Matt Gaetz as well, mentioning in your reporting that he is not going to be returning to Congress, but I understand he is planning to start a new gig. What gig would that be?
Yes, Allison. Gaetz has just joined Cameo. Now, that's the app that lets you purchase personalized videos from public figures, and he's charging upwards of $500 per video. Gaetz's bio on the site says, "I have served in Congress. Trump nominated me to be U.S. Attorney General. That didn't work out," he says. And he also says that he once fired the House Speaker. Now, Ellison, you might also remember another ex-congressman who has tried to stay relevant and make money by using Cameo. And yes, that is George Santos. Ellison.
Gabe Gutierrez with literally every detail we could need from the White House this evening or the upcoming incoming administration. Gabe, thank you. We appreciate it. Turning now to President-elect Donald Trump's legal battles. Tonight, the only Trump case that went to trial is now in limbo. The judge presiding over the New York hush money trial postponing the sentencing that was scheduled for next week. NBC's senior legal correspondent Laura Jarrett has been following the case and joins us now with more. So November 26th, not happening. What does that mean for the future of this case?
Uncertain future. It's at least sort of in limbo at this moment. But remember, the Trump defense team wants this entire case gone, wiped away, the conviction, the indictment, everything. If they fall short of that, say the judge comes back and says in mid-December, I hear you, but I'm going to just sort of keep it all on ice until he's no longer president and not in office, the defense team won't go for that. And so there could be a looming fight still on the horizon here, Ellison.
So this is one of the cases, because when it had to do with some of the election interference cases, classified documents, those were special counsel federal cases. This is a New York State case, right? Is there any way it can be moved?
So we're still waiting to hear, actually, what happens with those federal cases. Remember, they sort of signaled that they're winding down. We're going to hear from them on December 2nd about what to do there. In Georgia, we still don't know what really happened there. That got tied up on a different ethical issue for the DA. We still don't know what happened there. This was the only one that went to trial, but he can't be pardoned for this. It's a state crime. The AG can't do anything about it because that would be for federal office. So we're going to have to see what the judge does here in New York, as he's really the sole arbiter.
Laura Jarrett, thank you. And with Matt Gaetz out of the picture, the president-elect's other cabinet contenders could soon find themselves in the hot seat. Tonight, growing reaction from members of Congress about that allegation of sexual assault against Pete Hegseth, Trump's defense secretary pick. Trump's choice for director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, could also face tough questions over her previous stances on Russia and other U.S. adversaries. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles joins us now with more. So, Ryan, with Gaetz out of contention for Attorney General, are all eyes on the Hill essentially on Pete Hegseth?
I do think that he's going to get a great deal of scrutiny, but he's not the only cabinet pick that there are concerns on Capitol Hill regarding. I think that Tulsi Gabbard also has some big questions that she's going to be forced to answer. And you see some of the other picks, RFK Jr., for instance, and Linda McMahon, perhaps, as education secretary, where they're going to get a careful vetting. But I do think that Hegseth's issues, particularly sexual assault allegations, are going to be front and center among the Senate Republicans. There have been a number of Senate Republicans that have specifically talked about the sexual assault and sexual abuse problems within the military, and to have as the leader at the Pentagon someone who has similar accusations, even though he has very vociferously denied those allegations, perhaps could send the wrong message. And then there's also the issue with Hegseth that even though he is a decorated combat veteran, that he just doesn't really have that much experience running an agency the size and the scope of the Department of Defense that has 1.3 million active duty service members under its charge. So Hegseth has a path to confirmation for sure. The chair of the committee said so, but it's not going to be an easy path for him to get there.
Do we know when some of those other controversial picks you mentioned, like Tulsi Gabbard, will actually be on the Hill to meet with members of Congress? And in terms of questions, what do you think they're going to ask her?
Yeah, so there's a number of steps to this process, right? The first step are these private one-on-one meetings that Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. and Pete Hegseth will probably have more of that will really pick up in earnest in December. The next stage would happen in January after the new Senate is sworn in, and that's when the nomination and confirmation process begins with these public hearings. And the public hearings are where Democrats really have an opportunity to have their voice heard in this process. The Republicans have enough votes to get every one of these confirmations done without Democratic help, but Democrats will have the opportunity to ask Pete Hegseth about these accusations. They'll have the opportunity to ask Tulsi Gabbard about the things that she said about Russia and others. So that's when you're going to probably see a lot of contentious back and forth between senators and these picks by Donald Trump in January.
Ryan Nobles on Capitol Hill. Thank you. It's time now for our top story health check and a growing Listeria outbreak. The CDC saying 11 people in 4 states have gotten sick. 9 people have been hospitalized and 1 infant has died. The outbreak is linked to ready-to-eat meat and poultry products from Yusheng Food, and it includes foods like pork belly, chicken feet, and beef shank. So to break this all down, NBC News medical contributor Dr. John Torres joins us now. Dr. John, let's just start with the situation involving Listeria. What are the symptoms, and big picture, should people be worried with this latest recall?
And good evening, Ellison. And the thing is, when you start thinking about Listeria, you start thinking about these foodborne illnesses we've been hearing about, E. coli being the main one. And with E. coli, you tend to get stomach-type issues, gastrointestinal issues. With Listeria, you tend to get the same thing. But the reason this is concerning is because it also can get neurological issues associated with it, meningitis, encephalitis, and it can actually affect pregnant women and jump to the fetus, which can cause issues there as well. And as you mentioned, unfortunately, there was a young child that died as a result of this. And so the main thing is, if you have these products, and you can certainly go to the CDC site and find out what the products are, or the FDA site as well, and you will have them where in your refrigerator or in your house, get rid of them, clean everything they've come in contact with, and make sure you don't eat these. These are not the kind of things that cold temperature can get rid of. These are not the kind of things that necessarily hot temperatures can get rid of unless you cook it appropriately. So you want to be extra careful, Ellison.
All right, so in addition to that recall, there's the other recent food recall, nearly 170,000 pounds of ground beef shipped to restaurants nationwide, potentially contaminated with E. coli. Health officials are saying 15 people in Minnesota at least have gotten sick. All of this, of course, coming after that series of recent E. coli-related outbreaks like organic carrots and McDonald's onions. All of it, I think, Dr. Torres, is just so overwhelming to people because it seems like when you look at it, you're like, that's everything we're eating all the time. Carrots are healthy. We can get sick there. We can get sick here. What should people know about that?
And the main thing you need to know is, number one, you need to make sure you prepare your food well. And that means preparing the meats away from the fruits and vegetables, keep everything separate, and heat them to the appropriate temperatures. But also realize that every year we have these recalls, and part of that has to do with our manufacturing, processing, and distribution system. But the CDC says last year over 30 million people had foodborne illnesses, and the FDA says there were over 300 recalls last year. And so these happen on a regular basis. We're just hearing about a lot happening right now. E. coli tends to be the main one. So again, the main thing to remember is you want to prepare your food appropriately. If you hear about these recalls, follow what the recalls say, get rid of that food, and clean everything they came in contact with to keep you and your family healthy.
And before we go, I have to ask you about what's happening down in Florida with the state's Surgeon General recommending a halt to adding fluoride to that state's water supply. He has cited studies that say fluoride exposure is a, quote, public health practice. What does the science actually say? Do studies, in fact, say that fluoride is dangerous?
And Ellison, what the studies say is that high levels of fluoride can cause issues, particularly issues with, teeth issues, skeleton issues, and maybe even IQ issues. But those are high levels of fluoride. The other thing we know is that normal levels of fluoride can actually protect the teeth and are healthy. What we don't know, and this is where the studies need to be done, is what happens kind of in the in-between range and how much fluoride are people getting, because you have fluoride in the water, fluoride in your toothpaste, fluoride in mouthwashes, a variety of sources. And so are people getting too much from all these other sources and we need to pull it back in the water? Or do we need to keep it going in the water, especially for areas that might be affected more by not having that fluoride because they don't have access to that toothpaste or that mouthwash? And so these are questions that need to be answered. It's hard to do anything completely black and white here saying, yes, it's bad or no, it's good. You want to make sure that the studies are done and we get a good answer to this.
All right. Dr. John Torres, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Turning now to a historic rocket launch. Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin sending 6 civilian passengers to the Earth's boundary with space. The flight, part of the company's groundbreaking space tourism program. NBC News correspondent Marissa Parra has this report.
1, ignition.
Tonight, a spectacular journey bringing us closer to the stars. A bit of heaven for the 6 passengers on board Blue Origin. When they go up, they take all of us with them, seeing our sometimes troubled planet in a whole new light. For stepping back on Earth and into the arms of loved ones, the world's newest astronauts, heads still in the clouds, gushing about the journey of a lifetime.
I see so much space, and I kept saying, that's our planet. That's our planet. It was the same feeling I got when my kids were born, and I was like, that's my baby. It was beautiful.
Blue Origin's 9th crewed flight carried history on board. A married couple, now the first to make it to space together twice. And Emily Calandrelli of Netflix and YouTube fame as Space Gal. Now the 100th woman in space. Their 10-minute journey, a lifetime reminder that a new perspective can make even the biggest problems seem so small.
Seeing the world from up that high where you don't see the borders, you don't see the divisions, you don't see all of the lines that divide us. We're all one people. We're on this very fragile, small planet.
Proving wonders still happen. You just need to look around to see them.
And Marissa Parra joins us now from our southern border, our southern bureau, excuse me. Marissa, what a beautiful story. And I'm just stunned listening to what all of those people had to say. Can anyone be a passenger on one of these space tourism flights?
And I don't know if that's you trying to volunteer, Ellison.
I would like to.
The answer is yes. The answer is yes, if you or someone you know can fit the bill for tens of millions of dollars. I mean, it doesn't require as much training as some of these other missions we talk about. Going to the International Space Station for months, for instance, this is suborbital. So it really does not require much training, but it does require a hefty price tag. Now, Blue Origin, like many of these private space companies, don't have to disclose that price tag, but former passengers have told us it's upwards of $30 million, and that's on the lower end of the scale. So probably the most expensive 10 minutes of your life, but according to what we heard, it sounds like it was well worth it, Ellison.
All right, well, if I can find a lot of money, we will go together. Marissa Parra in Miami, our Miami bureau. Thank you. Still ahead tonight, the missing father mystery. A Wisconsin dad accused of faking his own death and fleeing to Eastern Europe. How police say they figured out he was still alive. Plus, the urgent warning to NFL and NBA athletes about South American crime rings possibly targeting their homes, what they're being advised to do. And a heart-stopping rescue in San Francisco. We'll show you the moment a man was airlifted from the side of a cliff. Stay with us. Back now, and we are getting new details on the missing family man from Wisconsin who is accused of faking his own death and fleeing to Europe. Police say they have proof that the married father of 3 is, in fact, alive and well, and now he's facing obstruction charges. NBC News correspondent Shaquille Brewster has more.
Good evening, it's Ryan Borgward.
This proof-of-life video from the Wisconsin man police say staged his own death came as a shock to investigators.
I'm in my apartment. I am safe, secure, no problem.
The specific location of the married father of 3 is still unknown, but Green Lake County Sheriff Mark Podol says his department is now emailing Ryan Borgward daily.
Our biggest concern was that he was safe and well.
Borgward was reported missing in August after police found his capsized kayak and fishing rod, wallet and keys, and vehicle parked near Wisconsin's Green Lake.
He picked Green Lake was because it was the deepest lake in Wisconsin. He did research.
But in October, the department learned Borgward's passport was run in Canada the day after he was reported missing, and that he moved funds to a foreign bank, took out a $375,000 life insurance policy for his family, and began communicating with a woman in Uzbekistan, they say.
He had his plan. His plan didn't work out.
Borgward told investigators he used an inflatable boat to paddle off the lake, riding a stashed e-bike more than 70 miles to Madison, hopping on a bus that took him through Detroit and into Canada, where the sheriff says he got on a plane to Europe.
He did say was he didn't expect us to go more than 2 weeks in searching for him. Well, I hate to tell you, he picked the wrong sheriff and the wrong department.
Podol says the obstruction charges will be filed within weeks and that the department will fight to get back up to $40,000 spent on the extensive search. While his wife, Emily, has not publicly commented since the investigation took a turn, she has been in regular contact with investigators.
She's strong. She's done everything that we have asked her, but her biggest concern is her kids and how she can explain to them what took place.
And his main message is an emotional ask for Borgward to come home to his family for the holidays.
Explain the emotion there.
You're talking about family, kids. And kids are the most important thing in your life. And what better gift that he could give his kids to return?
And Shaquille Brewster joins us now from our Midwest Bureau. Shaq, this is a crazy story. Have authorities said how they were able to actually get that email address to get in touch with Ryan?
Well, the sheriff pointed to his laptop, which has already been a crucial clue in this entire investigation. They say they essentially searched it for any email address or phone number they can find, and they were able to make contact with someone that they would only describe as a Russian-speaking woman. They say she was able to help connect them directly to Borgdorf for communication, and that's what led to what they're now calling these near daily email exchanges.
Shaq Brewster, thank you. Moving now to another major story tonight out of California, where for the first time in decades, Erik and Lyle Menendez are set to make a courtroom appearance. The brothers are scheduled to virtually attend a hearing on Monday as part of their efforts for resentencing. The two were convicted in the 1989 murders of their parents, Kitty and Jose Menendez, and have been behind bars for more than 3 decades. For more on all of this, we're joined by NBC News correspondent Liz Kreutz from Los Angeles. Liz, we know there's been a lot of renewed interest in this case in recent months, but walk us through the purpose of Monday's hearing. What do we expect to see and hear?
Hey, Ellison. Yeah, so this hearing is really a status update. It's going to be pretty procedural. That's what we expect, at least. It's really the pre-hearing to the really significant hearing that is scheduled for next month right now on December 11th. But of course, as we've reported and we've told you, December 11th is 9 days after the incoming district attorney takes office. And so there is a question about whether the new DA could ultimately postpone that hearing as he reviews the case and makes his own recommendation. And so as we look to Monday, that could be something something we get a sense on. We could get a sense from the judge overseeing this if he maybe wants to take things a little slower as we wait to get the recommendation from the new DA. We do know that Erik and Lyle Menendez will be appearing virtually via Zoom from prison in San Diego, which will be unique given, as you said, we have not seen them in front of a judge in years, really in decades there. And this is the same courtroom, Ellison, that they were sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole 28 years ago during their second trial that was highly watched. So even that is significant in and of itself, Ellison.
Yeah, I mean, with that past trial being televised, and even though they're virtually appearing here, is this something that people can watch in some form or fashion online?
You know, no cameras are going to be allowed in the courtroom. And so we are going to be the public really relying on sketches from court artists that will be in there, from reports from the media that will be in the overflow room. They're kind of keeping a tight lid on it. They are allowing 16 seats to be open to the public. And the way they are going to distribute those is simply by lottery. So the trial is 10:30 a.m. here in California. Doors open at 10, but the lottery tickets are going to be given out between 8 and 9 a.m. The lottery, they say, will happen promptly at 9:30 a.m. 16 lucky people will get in, and we expect that a lot of people might show up there because just like it was decades ago, it continues to be a case that fascinates so many people. It really kind of gives that sense of that Free Britney campaign. That's kind of what we're expecting probably at this trial, too. People at least showing up with signs in support of them, Ellison.
Yeah, a lot of eyes on this one. Liz Kreutz in L.A., thank you. When we come back, Sean Diddy Combs back in court. His lawyers asking for the music mogul to be released on bail, why the judge is asking for more time to make a decision. And MMA fighter Conor McGregor found liable for sexual assault. The amount he's been ordered to pay and what he's saying about the decision. Tonight, that is next. Back now with Top Stories news feed, and we begin here in New York, where the bail hearing for accused sex trafficker Sean Diddy Combs has been put on hold. The music mogul and his lawyers requesting his release from jail to home confinement in his Manhattan apartment. The judge says he needs to see more paperwork outlining the specific terms of Combs' potential release by Monday. Combs has pleaded not guilty to sex trafficking, prostitution, and racketeering conspiracy charges. The NBA and the NFL warning players to safeguard their valuables after a string of robberies. The leagues cautioning that the FBI is connecting several burglaries that targeted athletes to South American criminal gangs. The warning follows thefts at the homes of Kansas City Chiefs players Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. The NBA advising players to put alarms on their homes and to consider a guard dog. An Irish jury finding MMA fighter Conor McGregor liable for sexually assaulting a woman in 2018 in a civil case. The former UFC champion has been ordered to pay Nikita Hand more than $250,000 in damages after she alleged McGregor brutally raped and battered her at a penthouse at a hotel in Dublin after a night of heavy partying. McGregor denies those claims and says he plans to appeal. And a dramatic rescue of a man trapped on the edge of a cliff in San Francisco. Newly released video from the California Highway Patrol shows the man clinging to the rock face at Baker Beach near the Golden Gate Bridge on Sunday. A first responder rappelling from a helicopter, bringing him to safety on the beach. The man was uninjured. It's not clear how he ended up on the cliffside. Now to an NBC News investigation. Tonight, patients are demanding accountability after a renowned urologist was sentenced to life in prison for sexually abusing patients, including children, at 2 prestigious New York hospitals. Hundreds of men have filed civil lawsuits accusing the hospitals of knowing that the doctor was a danger to patients and failing to protect them. Our Tom Llamas brings us this investigation and a warning. What you are about to hear is graphic.
I would flash back to that moment for years, just seeing myself in the mirror, just almost feeling like I was detached from the person that I was looking at.
For years, 27-year-old Tucker Coburn has been haunted by his experiences with his urologist, Dr. Darius Paduch. Did you trust him?
I don't know. I at least felt like he was an expert in that field, and I didn't have any reason to doubt that.
Paduch was a renowned specialist at Weill Cornell Medical Center. Coburn, who has a genetic condition that affects his hormones, had no reason to believe his doctor could be a predator in a white coat.
He would fondle me in exams and things like that. I knew that it was weird. He presented in a way that it was like sort of medically appropriate.
Then in 2016, after Coburn turned 18,
there was an appointment where I had some abdominal pain, and then he came over and assaulted or abused me.
Was there a part of you trying to almost lie to yourself, like, maybe this is a medical procedure?
I think at that point I knew that was crossing.
He was crossing the line.
Yeah, crossing many lines. Like he was trying to press himself against me and to like demonstrate sexual arousal. Nothing of that is what a doctor should be doing.
While Paduch was not charged with allegedly abusing Coburn, Coburn did testify at the criminal trial. Paduch was convicted for sexually abusing several patients at Weill Cornell and Northwell Health in New York.
The real Dr. Paduch is a very, very sick, sadistic individual who hurt a ton of people for his own gratification.
Attorney Mallory Allen represents 140 men, including Coburn, in civil cases which allege that the hospitals enabled the abuse and failed to stop it.
He would not have the access to patients, right, without his position that he had at these institutions, right? This is not a man who was able to abuse hundreds, if not thousands of patients in a vacuum.
Did they know this abuse was happening?
Yes, unquestionably, they knew this abuse was happening.
How do you explain it?
It feels inexplicable, right? I fear the answer is going to be that the hospital put profits over patients.
So you're saying that you think these hospital chains employed a sexual predator knowing he was dangerous just to make money?
I think if that's not the answer, I can't think of what is.
According to former patients, their lawyers, and court filings, Weill Cornell Medical Center received at least 5 complaints accusing Dr. Darius Paduch of a range of inappropriate behavior and sexually charged remarks between 2006 and 2018. In 2018, a patient who asked us to identify him by his initials, BR, filed a complaint with New York's health department in which he reported that in 2006 at Weill Cornell, Paduch required that BR touch himself in front of him, showed BR photographs of other men's bodies, and asked about his taste in pornography. About 9 months after BR's complaint,
there's an email from 2018 which an employee basically says that there have been complaints about Paduch for 10 years. What do you have to say to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's shocking. They recognize themselves that, hey, this is something that we've been dealing with for 10 years. I mean, it's inexcusable.
Paduch continued working at Weill Cornell until 2020. But after Paduch left that hospital, he got a job at Northwell Health.
I know that we're not alone.
Where he continued seeing patients, even after Coburn sent a handwritten letter to Northwell Health urging the hospital to investigate its recent hire.
The investigation found both you and Dr. Paduch to be credible. The claims were not substantiated, and that a male nurse practitioner would be present during sensitive physical examinations whenever possible moving forward. Is it a slap in the face to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's odd to say that.
They believe you,
right?
But
It's credible, but they're going to
keep.
Yeah, it's infuriating.
Then, about 6 months later, an internal memo shows that Northwell investigated Paduch a second time after an ultrasound tech alleged that Paduch was using inappropriate, often sexual language in front of staff and patients. That complaint was substantiated.
I mean, it seems crazy that you would continue to investigate someone and have all these claims piling up and still not do anything.
Northwell Health said in a statement that they were deeply disturbed by what was revealed during Darius Paduch's criminal trial. Dr. Paduch abused his position of trust as a medical provider, betraying his patients and their families and misleading the Northwell community. Weill Cornell says that it has made changes, including launching expanded chaperone policies in 2023 and adding prominent signage and additional documentation procedures in order to minimize the risk of such abhorrent conduct occurring in the future.
I sincerely hope that Dr. Paduch no longer assaults his patients, but hope isn't enough.
Now that Paduch is behind bars, Coburn hopes he can finally achieve justice and healing.
I think that for me, the shame was more just that it happened in general. It took me a long time to realize that I hadn't done anything wrong.
If you could go back and talk to yourself when you were 17 or 18, and maybe give that kid advice, what would you wish someone had told you?
I think that I wish I had known that it was okay to stand up for myself rather than just sitting there and suffering. I would want to let myself know that it was okay and it wasn't my fault.
Several of the men who filed lawsuits told us they are still waiting for accountability from the hospitals that employed Dr. Paduch for about 2 decades, despite the complaints they had received. In court filings, the hospitals have denied allegations of negligence or misconduct. Ellison?
Tom, thank you. Coming up next, we head overseas to the dramatic images out of Iceland. A volcano roaring to life, lava closing in on a popular tourist destination and nearby homes. Why scientists say they were caught off guard by the powerful eruption. Stay with us. Back now with new images out of Iceland, where a volcano erupted for the 7th time this year. The lava creeping dangerously close to homes and at least one famous tourist attraction forced to evacuate. NBC News correspondent Valerie Castro has this one.
For the 7th time in a year, the fiery power of this volcano in Iceland on full display. The eruption, which began Wednesday, spewing lava that has consumed and collapsed roads, creeping closer to civilization. Molten rock gushing through Grindavik, about an hour's drive from the capital city of Reykjavik. Authorities set up barriers to divert the streams of lava away from the town. Smoke billowing relentlessly in these alarming images seen on land and from the air. As the hours drag on, the lava consuming 2 miles, forcing about 50 evacuations. The escalation of the eruption catching some travelers off guard.
I know volcano must be exciting for you, but please remain seated with your seatbelt securely fastened.
Tourists at the famous Blue Lagoon were alerted by sirens for another eruption back in March, piercing through the darkness. Now 2 hotels there evacuated as the lava closed in. Crews racing to repair damage in the luxury geothermal spa's parking lot. The volcano had been dormant for 800 years until geological systems reactivated it in 2021. Experts say this eruption was expected based on the building pressure, but what they didn't expect was how quickly it came.
This eruption has very little warning in terms of seismicity. Prior to some of the others, we've seen a longer period of slight increase in background seismicity.
For some residents, the eruption left them in the dark, without electricity and in some cases, without heat.
The electricity supply has been destroyed because the heat from the lava has simply melted or affected the lines.
For many who evacuated months ago, along with the latest wave this week, questions remain about the status of their homes.
When do we go back? Can we go back? Will we ever go back?
Based on how past eruptions have played out, scientists say this one is expected to subside in just a few days and say it's actually measuring smaller than the last eruption that took place in August. Ellison?
Valerie Castro, thank you. Thanks so much for watching Top Story. For Tom Llamas, I'm Ellison Barber in New York. Stay right there. More news is on the way.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.